Amber Heard. My dog stepped on a bee, and thus created great hilarity for the ultra known as HG. I will be coming along presently to the rhyming aspect of My Dog Stepped on a Bee. I've been about other matters recently, important professional matters, which have precluded me from continuing my observations and coverage of what has been going on in the Depp and Heard trial, in case those of you are wondering, and judging by the various comments and emails, some of you were. I will be returning to it, dipping in and out of the material that it provides us to understand more about the narcissistic dynamic, having established that Amber Heard is indeed a narcissist. This particular piece of footage has come my way, and basically C-3PO is having a real fucked up day. You'll recall in parts passing of this series about Depp and Heard that I identified where her narcissism was effectively glitching. Well, it goes into overdrive here, as her narcissism shows. Some of you may recall the film Total Recall, not the Colin Farrell remake, but the first one with Arnie. And you might recall there's a part where he's trying to get through some kind of customs dressed up as a rather large woman, and the robotics start to glitch and starts using different voices, and then the whole thing goes to shit. Well, when I watched this footage, that put me in mind of the Total Recall moment, because basically, as I explained previously, that Amber Heard goes into her sort of C-3PO moment. It demonstrates the glitching in a similar way to what has occurred in Total Recall. We see her narcissism misfiring, and it creates a rather unedifying spectacle for those watching. Of course, many people would just think that she's full-on mental, rather than understanding that it's her narcissism that is causing her to behave in the way that she is, causing her to behave in a particular way, which I am going to unpack for you. However, before I do so, let's have a look at the relevant clip that's roughly just over a minute in length, as where Amber Heard is giving some testimony and recalling a particular incident involving Johnny Depp, and then I will unpack what's going on for you, doing so, of course, through the lens of her narcissism. Here comes the clip.
Everyone was just having a good time, like normal stuff. So I just smiled and made a joke about how trashed the trailer got, and we had to get the manager, who started off furious that Johnny had wrecked the thing. And then he had this black mesh tank top, not tank top, it was like a meshy kind of shirt on. And I remember he came into the trailer and looked around and was like, whoa, what happened here? Whoa. And Johnny had an exchange with him. And I remember watching this man be so charmed. It was just a kind of a surreal experience, and, it just went away. That just got fixed. We walked out of the trailer at some point. My dog stepped on a bee. We went to the vet and went on with our, vacation. We actually went to another location after that, and then eventually went home and went about our life.
Well, there you are. 1 minute's worth of interesting footage. Let's now explain what's going on. As you know, one makes a determination as to what the person is to enable them to understand their behaviour. We have to establish the prism through which the behaviour, the actions, the speech and the behaviours can be seen. I extensively analysed Amber Heard's behaviour over many years from a different range of sources through the various parts of Amber Heard, what is she, to make the determination, not just relying on what has been disclosed in this trial, but much more information beforehand, and establish that she is indeed a narcissist. Having done so, and crossed that strict evidential threshold to make that determination, we can now interpret her behaviours. She starts off with her voice breaking slightly, as her narcissism causes her to emote in that particular way as part of engendering sympathy. Remember, at that moment in the courtroom, her narcissism has to essentially throw out its tendrils across a lot of different people in order to gain control or maintain control. The lawyer that is inviting her testimony, the judge, the jurors, other people who are sat in the public gallery, the reporters, and also, of course, the world at large that's watching. All of those individuals come upon her radar, and her narcissism, unconsciously, because she doesn't know what she is, has to then assert control. And it selects the means of doing so to sound nervous and upset by way of a pity play. So she starts off with the voice breaking, and then starts talking about how the trailer was trashed, as opposed to being trailer trash, I suppose. And then, as her recollection continues, she talks about the arrival of a manager, and apparently this manager is furious that Johnny Depp has trashed the trailer. She then starts to describe what the manager was wearing. Now that would, of course, seem rather irrelevant. This isn't a fashion show. This isn't evidence about what the manager was wearing. But it's being done by her narcissism to establish plausibility. Why? By seeking to provide a detail as to what that manager was wearing when recalling this incident and bringing up the past to control the now, her narcissism does so in order to create plausibility to make her seem convincing. And that enables her then to assert control. On the face of it, you might think, why on earth is she talking about what the manager is wearing? But it's her narcissism doing it to create that plausibility, because plausibility assists with the assertion of control. She describes how he comes into the trailer and he looks around. And note, she then pulls a looking around face. This is where her narcissism is starting to glitch, because, in effect, she doesn't distinguish between people, because they are extensions of herself, because that's the way that her narcissism works, like any narcissist. When she's recalling that incident, she is the manager, and therefore she's doing the look around face, because he is an extension of her. And then she mimics him in terms of saying, "Whoa, what happened here?" Trying to do an approximation of his voice. Rather than just say, "Yes, the manager turned up and looked around," and then said, "Whoa, what happened here?" She has to do it as if she is him. And that's part of the fact that her narcissism sees him as an extension of herself. But it makes her look rather comical. It makes her look rather silly in the proceedings. And of course, there's an incongruity. Earlier on, her voice was breaking. This is all very upsetting and nerve-wracking. And now, oh look, she's able to sort of impersonate the manager. That damages her credibility. But her narcissism doesn't see it that way, because it's two separate instances. Earlier on, the pity play in order to assert control, and in the later incident, even though it's just mere seconds later, it's done as part of trying to assert control by character trait acquisition. She then goes on, by way of provocation, by essentially saying that this man was easily charmed by Johnny and the problem went away and it got fixed. This, of course, is essentially smearing Depp by to suggest that, oh, he's a charmer, this is what he does with people, people are putty in his hands. And of course, I will be analysing what Depp is in due course. We then get to the favourite part. She talks about how we walked out of the trailer at some point, and then my dog stepped on a bee. And then she pulls a face, a strange, sort of upset grimace. Is it the case that she's just stabbed herself in the thigh with a drawing pin? Perhaps one of her love eggs is malfunctioning. No, what's actually happening here is that her narcissism, in recalling the events of that day, brings up essentially an irrelevance, namely that her dog stepped on a bee. But it's doing it again for the purposes of plausibility, to try and bring up a detail from that day, bringing up the past to control the now, by saying, I remember what the manager was wearing, and I also remember my dog stepped on a bee. Well, on the face of it, it does appear to be somewhat irrelevant, and rather incongruous as to what she's talking about. Do we really need to know that? But her narcissism deems that it should do. But the problem for her is that her narcissism is glitching so much, going total recall on her, she then pulls a face. Not as if to think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Far from it. What she's actually doing is that she is pulling the face of a dog that has stepped on a bee. Yes, there is no end to Amber Heard's acting talents. She is doing the face of her dog as it stepped on that bee. It looks ridiculous, it looks incongruous, and many people, and I've seen videos to this effect, are wondering, what the fuck are you doing, woman? But that's what she's doing. Again, the dog is essentially an extension of her. And rather than think to herself, well, I shouldn't pull a face like that, that just looks patently ridiculous, no, her narcissism takes her down that route. And then she snaps back to talking about we went to the vet, and then mumble went on with our vacation. So this short clip provides us with another opportunity of seeing her narcissism in action, but also to see how it starts glitching, and to help you understand, because of her level of narcissism, that it's struggling to maintain control, and that's why you keep seeing these glitches occurring. It demonstrates the attempt to assert control through different manipulations. It demonstrates the need for constant control while she's conscious. It demonstrates the character trait acquisition. It demonstrates the attempts at plausibility, and is a magnificent little nugget of information which allows me to unpack it for you to understand more about narcissism, and into the bargain to see the quite ridiculous "my dog stepped on a bee" and the face pull of the bee-stung dog thereafter. This, of course, has spawned a video that I saw recently where people then said something which rhymed with "my dog stepped on a bee" and did an exaggerated face pull. So, for example, one lady said, "My children spilled my tea," and "my mum stuck in a tree," and my personal favourite, which amused me given my twisted sense of humour, "Jimmy Savile shagged me," and "a flea, my scrote was bit by a flea," and so forth. All very entertaining. As ever, I look forward to your comments on this video analysis, but in the spirit of continuing the concept of "my dog stepped on a bee," I would invite you to add in the comments section your own one-liners so that they rhyme with the line "my dog stepped on a bee." I gave you my offering at the start, saying that it caused great hilarity with the ultra named HG. And now it's your turn. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.